world where space and time are intertwined, one man dared to challenge the status quo. His name? Dayton Miller. His weapon of choice, a flute. But not just any flute. This instrument held the power to unleash the ether, a pervasive medium once thought to fill the universe. Miller, a physicist by trade, a musician at heart, discovered a harmonic resonance within the ether. He found that his flute, when played with precision, could manipulate this elusive medium. His melodies, a symphony of science, had the potential to shift the very fabric of reality. However, a sinister force lurked in the shadows. The Einsteinian demons. These creatures thrived in the distortion of space-time, causing chaos and disruption. The world needed a hero, and Miller was ready to answer the call.
All right, hello and welcome everyone to the Friday Community Twitter Space, hosted by Brian Sweet and Ken. Let's tap in with the lads and see what they're up to.
On the oceans, and we're just spinning inside of the oceans and stuff like that. I mean, it's like, you do realize that sometimes you see the fucking sun and the moon in the sky at the same time, so all the fucking water would be going there, everything, and they're like, you got a pressurized system next to a fucking vacuum, and they're like, wait a minute, what? I mean, seriously. Yeah. Come on up, Lovis.
Cars in the house.
What's up, Alan? What's up, Cat?
Yo,
Hey,
what's up, lads? What's up,
Good
Chris?
evening, gentlemen.
Just making a little din-din while we're waiting for some globies to come in. Apparently, the globies are scared to come in. Apparently, the fact that we do this every Friday night is confusing them, and they don't know where to find us.
Hey guys, you know the way Hillary,
They're terrified.
you know the way Hillary is holding a coffee cup on that statue in GTA 4? Well, the beating heart could mean that there's not actually coffee in the cup. There could be blood in that cup, because the beating heart.
Nice.
Well, if it's Hillary's cup, of course there's blood in the cup.
You know what they say about blood in the cup? If there's blood in the cup, you should go see a doctor immediately.
Well, Hillary.
I agree with that.
Hillary,
whatever you do, don't ever look up fucking two girls in a cup, man. Don't ever.
Another medical emergency.
I heard that was actually ice cream.
Inshallah, it was. You know what I'm saying, brother? Inshallah. So, speaking of solar system dynamics, boys, have you guys heard the new null hypothesis that I just dropped?
What do you got?
I just dropped a new piece, bro. All right, so check this out. I made a little post of it. 1 second. So where did I put that? Oh, it's on my other slide. 1 second.
Oh, the Dew tunnel is filling up. Come on up, Al. I know you're down there, you little bitch.
All right, so check this out. The new null hypothesis is cosmological dynamics use variables like G and M, which is the gravitational potential and the mass to cause said gravitational potential at a proportional ratio. And these variables are independent of the equations of mechanics, and therefore dynamic solutions will diverge from kinematic solutions. So when they talk about gravity in the sky, and they talk about using the big G and the big M and the little m over the r squared, what they're talking about is, this planet weighs this much, the other planet, in relation to whatever it's orbiting, and the G between them is the gravitational potential, and that's the cause of why they're moving. And because mass and forces are involved, they're asserting dynamics, which means causal mechanisms in terms of this is why they're moving. Okay. And then the null hypothesis is cosmological dynamic variables like G and M are not independent from kinematics. Therefore, kinematic solutions will not diverge from dynamic solutions. So I got a spreadsheet here, which I'll put a link to in the main chat. Put a couple links up here as I go through this. But what I did is I took the mass of Mercury and the G and the M for Mercury, which you get from the periodicity, which is what you just when you just observe the planet completing an orbit, the time that it takes for it to complete the orbit. Well, there's a math ratio that you could extract out of that to convert that into a velocity. So you could say, oh, well, now I know how long or how fast it's going to complete this. And then because you use pi as part of the ratio, you can also use, you can get like a distance in terms of astronomical units for the for the radius or the semi-major axis of the orbit. So all of these parameters are just based off of what you observe, and that's kinematics. Kinematics is just the observation of distance, time, and velocity. And from that, you can extrapolate future predictions of motion. So if there's a cycle going on, you could describe it kinematically with no problem with proportional ratios and whatnot. And that's exactly what Kepler's laws are. They're just proportional ratios. And so, um, they tell everyone that they're solving that, that they can solve these equations with mass involved to describe the forces. Well, when you go to solve them, the mass actually ends up canceling out. And the only thing that the mass and gravity bring into the equation is the units of kilograms and meters. Well, meters comes from the distance with the AU, but it's only introducing those units so that we can think about the like why they're moving in terms of like familiar units and how we experience things. Like, my phone weighs X amount of kilograms. Like that's so like it's just a way to introduce those units themselves into the sky, so that because the mass canceling out, it actually has no relationship to what's being asserted. And then so what you can do a little algebra with just the G and the M, and that breaks down into just the velocity, which is derived from the periodicity and the orbit length, which is just using pi as the conversion rate for the periodicity to get the velocity. So there's no actual, like, nobody ever measured any distance, no one ever measured any weights, no one ever measured any velocity. All they did was calculate it over pi and then get units, dimensionless units that they later introduced constants. So like when Cavendish measured big G, they then had a G to divide their ratio of GM against to get the mass of what the center or body is orbiting or whatever. So they've got all these nice constants and they've got their observations, and they're saying when they introduce the constants that those are more fundamental than the kinematics themselves, and it should make better predictions dynamically. And then so what I did was I took the precession amount over 100 years that they say that Mercury exhibits, and if you change the dynamic parts of the equation, so the G and the M, so if I double those or 1.5 them or whatever, it's going to change the amount of precession that's predicted dynamically. But then when I change one orbital parameter, either the distance from the semi-major axis or the time, it compensates for it exactly the same, because the G and the M are a ratio of the velocity, which comes from the periodicity and the semi-major axis. They're inseparable. So every time the dynamics change, the kinematics change proportionally, and that would only happen
Are you
if the
kidding me right now?
dynamics. Yeah, no.
Freaking put a man on the moon. We can't keep a man in the space, man. I hope you're listening, Alan. We lost you.
Oh shoot,
What's up, Shane?
that's so unfortunate. I hate when that happens. Oh, we'll try again.
Or is it me?
Feller.
Oh,
What up, fellas? No, I think I don't know what's going on. I was listening to Alan go deep in this new president. The Globies frequently mix up kinematics and dynamics in their explanations, and they get caught up in their own understanding of what they think causes what, and that when we try to argue it, like we try to untangle it for them first.
I ain't gonna lie. I've learned more about shit in the last 3 years than I ever learned, in high school and shit. I mean, I heard about it, but I never really knew what, kinematics or dynamics were. Didn't even realize what fucking special relativity. I mean, seriously. I mean, that That's such a gaslight fucking field to be in, special relativity. I mean, you literally have to shrink an interferometer in that, and everybody's cool with it. I just don't get it.
I don't know. You could be a theoretical physicist, get welcome at dinners, but be off by a factor of 10 to the 10,000th power or whatever the hell they say they're off by. In the cosmological
all of
factor.
it, like whatever the highest number you can imagine is, that's how much they're off by. Sorry about that. I put a link in the in the blue, whatever it's called, the jumbo, so you can get to the spreadsheet. You can see the results there that I'm talking about. So the epsilon K and the epsilon D, the K is for kinematics. That one's derived just based off of all the parameters that don't involve mass or any sort of dynamics. And then the D includes the GM ratio, which is their gravitational potential and mass that comes out of the periodicity and the semi-major axis, like just the length of their orbit as a ratio of pi. So when I change the GM parameters, the other ones shouldn't be able to solve, without accounting for some sort of dynamic variable, but they change proportionally every time, which shows that there's no dynamics. They cancel out, they're irrelevant. The kinematics is the more fundamental aspect of it, and kinematics is just the observation in a cycle using distance over time. So there's no actual causal like there's no way to assert gravity is the cause of what's moving, when I could equally use kinematics and say unicorn dust is why. There's a unicorn dust pressure differential up there, and as the rigid bodies move through it, it causes this.
It'd have to be dark unicorn dust.
No, just use like time dilated etheric displacement. Same thing.
Yeah.
Same explanatory power is what you're saying.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And then so this will never be falsified. We'll go through and take a look and see if some replies have come through yet. So this guy says, I can refute is irrelevant. BS doesn't matter. Civilians verifying satellite orbits in space via physical Doppler measurements. People use future orbit calcs, proves you are all confused. So what this gentleman doesn't, this is an excellent reply. I can't wait to go in on this later. So check this out. This gentleman is saying that satellite orbits prove the dynamics of Earth. What he's about to find out is that GMM over R squared, as applied to a satellite around us, the mass cancels out and it just comes out to be a velocity ratio. And I'll be able to predict where the satellite will be just using distance and time with no dynamics, the same way that the equation already does. So that'll be forthcoming soon. So like none of that argument even, it's like literally falling into the same trap. He thinks that because there's G and M in there, they started with that proves the mass is in there. He didn't look at any of the, what happens when you solve it, because the magic happens when you solve it. That's when the mass cancels out and it just goes back to a velocity as a ratio of the periodicity and semi-major axis. So there's a really important relationship here, because all of the fundamental constants, especially the ones that are asserted for dynamies, are confirmed by using it as a ratio of another one of the variables. So they're not independently confirmed in that way. And because of that, you can set up an internally consistent system. So think about this. They say that they know that the radius of Earth is 6,371,000 kilometers. I'm sorry, that's meters. That would be 1,000 for kilometers. So anyway, they say that they know the radius of Earth, and then they use the radius of Earth as a ratio of the astronomical unit by making a central angle triangle when Venus is in a specific position in the sky. So now they've associated astronomical distance with how we calculate terrestrial distances. And because meters are also a ratio of a terrestrial meridian, the way that they go to calculate things in space is going to be internally consistent with the variables that they were using, that they started with in the lab frame. So they're like extending the framework outward to the cosmos, but it's internally consistent. So as long as you have a periodicity in a unit of measurement, which is a ratio of the system itself, it's not going to output variables that are wrong. It's going to output the variables that you're solving for when you enter all the other parameters. So that's an extremely important thing to keep in mind. So so yeah, when when they're like, oh, it's this much mass and this far away, well, it's all ratio based. If they came up with a different unit of measurement and ratioed an arc in the sky versus a change in position on the ground differently, then it would just be whatever units those are. It's not a mutually exclusive thing. Um, and we prove that by showing how just changing the velocity or the semi-major axis or the time will solve for the exact same thing that they're asserting with the dynamics. And that's impossible if the dynamics have any actual bearing on the position.
In other words, gravity can't be the cause, and you could easily just say that you don't know the cause of the dynamics of why things move, but you can equally predict based on the history where it'll be tomorrow, essentially, right? Empirical
Yep.
observation is all that they had, and then the actual history behind it is Newton was like, no, I'm going to add this G dynamic force to it. Now I have a new formula. No, it's just the same formula. It can be backwards derived and removed, especially when describing things in orbit when you're equating gravitational to centrifugal force, then the mass drops right out. So as we frequently point out, the dynamic cause for the thing when you're using the thing isn't present in the thing. So, I always wanted a Glober to explain that to me.
And then say that gravity is the weakest of the four fundamental forces out there, and the easiest to overcome. But it's keeping us together. It's letting tin cans fly around the Earth. Keeping a fucking moon up there in the sky. But whatever.
It can hold cruise ships to the bottom of quote unquote Australia, right? But if you let a balloon off, it can't hold that. So I guess gravity is just selective.
No globies down there, huh? This is getting pretty sad on these globies, man.
Usually they just come and they act fallacious, throw a couple ad homs, distract a couple times, then do 2 victory laps, congratulate each other, and then leave. Like that's
Pretty sad on these globies, man.
usually they just come and they
I lost connection again, so we'll give it the old college try again.
Dude, I blame the Satelloons and Elon.
Man, got to get those Satelloons working, man.
Dude, every time we talk about Satelloons, I like to mention this dude. I think he died recently. Last time I quoted him, someone told me later that he died. Gerardus Barrow, I think, and he says that for the record, it has been shown at least 6 different ways this century alone that the equations in physics used by NASA to launch satellites are identical to the equations derived from a geocentric universe. Thus, if the space program is proof of anything, it proves geocentric. A bunch of slides from Robert Sungenis and his geocentrism and how physics explains the universe. And there's a bunch of how these forces are actually derived, like Coriolis, centrifugal, Euler, how they're all specifically from geocentric the universe, and then they have to translate them to heliocentric, and then they become pseudo forces and the difference between those, etc. So it's kind of funny. Dude, everyone should check this video out from Robert Sungenis. I think I'll post it. It's like the geocentric. He explains all of physics from a geocentric position and how it's much simpler and more elegant, of course.
It's even weaker than the evidence for evolution. I love that quote. I love that part.
Right?
Dang, and that's one of the weakest things you could ever have.
Evolution. That stance to promote evolution is pretty weak. Yeah.
Speaking of evolution, Taylor is going to be doing a presentation on glowbusters at some point on abiogenesis. So if you haven't got caught up to date on the fraudulence of what is it called, abiogenesis and evolutionary science, just check into that.
Isn't that like the theory of how life came from nothing out of spontaneous conditions that arise simultaneously to get ribosomes and DNA, which require mutually exclusive and prohibitive circumstances, evolve simultaneously to be combined, intertwined to form the DNA that ended up being you, or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. So like, you know how sometimes you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Well, like if enough time went on and it got struck by lightning and it became primordial ooze jelly,
Then
it would
that could
eventually
become
have yeah, it would eventually have thoughts and like could become your best friend and like talk to you.
that makes sense when you put it like if, like so like a South Park character, it would become Toasty or whatever, like Tally. It
Oh,
would
so
just
you
start
don't know
talking.
about peanut butter and jelly theory?
Go on, I'm listening.
All right, so about 78 billion zillion years ago,
Sure.
there was grape jelly being spread on sourdough bread. Delicious fresh baked sourdough bread.
Dude, you really
Did
committed
we
to
lose you?
this. Huh?
Was that
No,
it?
no, that's it. That's just the theory. That's what
Oh, I
I
thought that was the
that's my
pretext for a long tale you were gonna
that's my
tell.
null hypothesis, and good luck refuting it. If it comes
I was
down
waiting on the peanut butter.
now just know if it comes down to it, I will invoke the twinkle rate of stars over 90-day periods to supplement my arguments in any way I see fit. So just like heads up if you try to refute me.
My twinkle rate, which currently can be used to prove exoplanets, can mean anything I say it means. So look out.
Bro, they go as far as to say that they can derive how much a planet weighs based off of its twinkle rate, because the twinkle rate intervals imply that the ionized gas that's being emitted from the atmosphere from the planet is being held down because the gravity is like so like strong, and it's like it makes it so that it has to build up, and that build up makes an opaque layer which dims it, and then after enough buildup occurs it then ejects it all, so then that's what's giving the flicker rate. So based on the intervals over 90 days, they say that they can tell how much a star weighs, guys. Like just like think about if I turn my ceiling light on and off over and over again, how long do you think I have to get before I get like a good interval session before I could derive how much my house weighs?
Dude, I think you gotta go. You gotta be able to flick that thing fast. I don't think you can do it fast enough, man. I mean, that's the most retarded thing ever. It's a light was twinkling in the sky, and they can now measure fucking the weight of planets, weight of the
Bro,
planets.
they got so carried away with dynamics, bro. That's what putting GMM in the sky did to them. It just totally broke their brains.
Well, that equation that like where the mass drops out of it when you use it to describe real things, well, that's the same equation that they then rearrange to solve for the thing that drops out to pretend that all stars have mass and that they know how much it is. That's the funniest part. It's like you forgot about what we just showed. That's like, no, it's fine. But that thing I'm still gonna use, that broken, ridiculous. I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna apply it over here.
Man, the things they try to sell us, and people just believe this shit.
Well, there's a lot that goes into that, dude. Like the doctors speak, like nobody reads white papers because doctors kind of speak in that language that's only for the scientific, like the scientifically literate, and they use like their own expressions and jargon, and that's on purpose because if they explain to the people in real and like layman speak or like common jargon, then the people would laugh at them. Like try to have like one of the particle physicists explain in layman terms what they think they're trying to do and have them not be laughed at, instead of like to dress it up as, well, you don't understand it. You don't understand the division of the particles and the layers of the electron that's actually spinning at half the speed of light and merging into each other to change energy levels to become a different resonance. Okay, all right. Dude, I was arguing with Piezo the other day about particles and quantum stuff.
that led to a really good convo because he found a relationship between fluid dynamic equations and Einstein's field equations for spacetime.
Yeah, he was yelling at me like I was refuting his equivalence of relativity and fluid dynamics, and I was like, "No, that's boss. That sounds awesome. I'm just trying to get the everything's at base particle and tiny little BBs that oscillate around each other at half the speed of light." It's like I'm just trying to like he has a different convention for explaining what that observed phenomena is with the etheric framework, which I thought was really interesting and awesome. I think Eric thought it was so awesome he published it and like framed it.
Yeah. Shout out to
It was
Eric,
pretty
dude.
good. I think what he all right, he archived it as the archivist / librarian.
The things people believe, man.
Dude, I see Xavier down there in the streets. Can we get young Xavier up here?
I
Is he
sent him
down
a
there?
I sent him a mic. If he accepts it, he can come on up.
Oh, dude,
I don't
I
know if
see
he's busy or not.
Barber. So check this out. I see Barber Dan down there, and I remember him talking about radiation pressure one time. And I was like, yeah, it sounds kind of not like anything I'm interested in. Like, I don't, wasn't really feeling it, but couldn't really argue against it, But anyway, I ended up finding out there's an experiment called Pound Repka in 1965, and their interpretation of how they were the way that a way that you could interpret the measurement is that a photon has mass to it, and you could apply like light pressure, like radiation pressure, essentially with it. So Barbara Dan, shout out to you. I can send you those paper or like links to them if you want to check them out. It made me think of you because it's basically what you were kind of talking about before with the I think you were saying it was like uranium or something, but the same concept, honestly. There he is. What's up, Xavier?
Yeah. What's going on, guys?
Dude, I seen you put out a new logic drop the other day in the chat.
Yeah. Trying to get that circulating. I think I saw you guys in a Facebook group. I'm trying to recruit new people up into Twitter. I said, is that Shane and Alan? I'll go check on that later. But I got some rage posts happening in Facebook. I'm trying to get some like honest people to discuss, but it's kind of hard to find on any platform nowadays. So I'm guessing nobody came up with a way to refute your null hypothesis on the
So
dynamies and
so there was been one challenger, but the equation he's citing is the same equation I'm citing, so he doesn't know that he's already refuted yet. So I'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, I'm just waiting for some more replies to come in. But yes, so far only one contender, and his conclusion was my premise. So that's unfortunate. But boy came in, but boy came in and was like, "Yo, if I use the same equation, you just show that the mass canceled out satellite." It's like, yeah, but you don't know why it's moving though. It's like it's just velocity. That's my point. When you solve that for the satellite, that other m is going bye bye. It's turning into velocity, and then the output is going to be in meters and kilograms because of distance, and the ratio for g is in kilograms, and then also the other m is in kilograms. So you're going to end up with a kilogram at the end there, and that's going to be the only relation to mass that you'll ever conceptualize of. It's just a numerical value that has no meaning to the actual cause, whatever it is.
I mean, there
Like,
should be
like
games in math.
yeah, like here's the thing. This yeah, so even this argument doesn't even. It's not mutually exclusive to flat Earth, right? Because we argue radius of vision, celestial sphere. So, but like even as a globe lad, what this implies, dynamically that like geocentrism. So Woodblood should definitely want to hop on this if they're into the old heliocentric dynamics and Einstein. Dude, I can't wait for an Einsteiner to come through, Xavier. I had like the globe needs a hero, and it needs to be a general relativity guy. Like if one of you if one of you guys could come through on that comment, that would be splendid.
I mean, you can't be more right. It's why I studied it so much, because I found out that's the foundation. After everything, people need to stay at the bottom of a globe because of GM, right? And you said it. Dynamics is everything is derived from that. And I was thinking at just the top of my head, if a quantity is fixed by physical laws and that's determined by those physical laws, um, that's it right there. You know what I mean? Acceleration is fixed by forces, not kinematic equivalences. So I don't understand why that's not a net positive, and everybody could be like, okay, the guy has a point. We need to understand that these the masses cancel out, and there's just acceleration, and acceleration needs a force, not a pseudo force. So I don't get it, but good
Yep.
job though. I love that post.
Yeah, it's like irrespective of what we think about the shape of the Earth, this kinematic dynamic situation needs needs addressed. Because that's basically like, I mean, like obviously they believe in the moon landing, which would help give them like, oh yeah, the dynamics do, like, even though it just works out kinematically for some reason, the dynamics really are there. But if you're a globe lad that sees through the moon landing, like this is definitely something that you should look into, because there's no scenario that has thus been presented that accurately predicts something different than what the kinematics do just off periodicity and time.
I think it's just an understanding issue, because a lot of people are coming around. I'm seeing a lot of people doing the denial of the moon landing, even questioning what's going on in Antarctica, even saying that, hey, these aliens might be demons. I'm like, all right, good, good. And then there was a post today. Do you believe the Earth is flat? And a lot of people were like, do you know? And one of them said, oh, I'm a marine biologist, so I don't entertain that. I know it's a globe. And I wanted to chime in, like, what about marine biology proves the oblate spheroid? But
Yeah, dude. Dude,
you
to get
respond
your
to
marine
everything.
degree, you have to like do 8 inches per mile squared and recite it or whatever.
Yeah, but
I'm
if
a
they know that,
marine biologist. What is that? What? What? So you put your head underwater and the Earth is a globe? Is that what happens?
I know the Earth's a globe because I had a bowl of cereal this morning. The two may seem unrelated, but that's just because you're dumb.
It's
Or it
because
just
you're
means you're a
dumb.
gay fish.
Yo, what's up, Barbara Dan?
What's good, bro? DM it me.
Oh yeah, the Pound Repco stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, I've got
Yeah.
a self-proclaimed astrophysicist telling me that Einsteinian gravity and Newtonian gravity is the same fucking thing.
Oh.
Einstein just
Okay.
explains it better.
Okay.
Well, he can say
So
that because astrophysicists they play in imagination.
so I actually came across this in my recent Prezi. I'll hit you with the papers in a second, Barbara Dan. Okay, so check this out. Newton is based off of an absolute framework where you can use superposition for things like you can add two masses together and get a sum. So like you can add you can add 5 kilograms to 15 kilograms and get 20, like everything, and then you can add another 15 on there and get 30, so on and so forth, right? You can do the same with length. You can have 12 inches, add another 12 inches, you got 24 inches, so on and so forth. Okay, that's an absolute framework, and that concept of adding things together like that is called superposition. Not to be confused with like weird quantum, superposition type stuff. This is just like a math thing. And then so Einstein's field equations, to solve them, uh, they're nonlinear field equations. So you have to like input specific parameters to solve them. You can't just like whatever solution you get as the output is the solution. You can't be like, hey, I've got two solutions from two different from two different ways I solve this. Can I add these two together and, can I add these two black hole masses together? No, that's actually a violation of uh of the framework and the difference between a nonlinear field equation solution and something that comes from superposition, like an absolute framework. So what happens is, okay, so for the perihelion precession, so like now that we've established that there's two different frameworks at play, they're not the same. Like one is a force, the other one is a curvature. They often romanticize it and talk about it like, gravitation, curvature is an extension of, Newton and all this stuff, and you can mathematically in a weak field approximation, you can reduce the equations back to Newton. And so they're like, oh, therefore it's kind of the same, but it's not the same. It's fundamentally and mathematically a different thing, and you can't add them together. Now, it's not Hap's fault that he is confused about that, because the way that they teach it in mainstream and whatnot is that, like, I found this the other day during the perihelion prezi, is that what they'll do is they'll take what Newton predicts for the perihelion precession, and they'll take what Einstein predicts from his field equations, and then they add those two together, and they get as a force, because Newton is a force. And then so what they do by adding the Einstein term is they're adding like a little extra inward pull. And so when they do that, they're doing superposition, right? They're taking they're taking two things and adding them together, two lengths, two distances, two velocities, like they're adding them together from two. And that is not, you cannot do that. And that is what causes people to say, like, or to be confused on whether or not it's a force or a pseudo force. And I can for as many sources as one can find that says it's a force, I'll find just as many that says it's a pseudo force. So there's no agreement or consensus in the mainstream. So you have to refer to the rules of the mathematical framework themselves and stick to that, because you can't have an arbiter. You can't use an authority to appeal to it, because it's going to be whatever, whether or not they actually agree with the rules or not. So you have to just look at the rules, make your own determination on the validity there. So yeah, that's what's going on there. So he said, let me find your post real quick. I see Stone G down there. What's up, brother? See, so he said, or no, this is something that you said. You said Einstein has no forces. They're not the same thing. They're completely different dynamics. And that's a true statement. But the way that they are trained in misusing the math, they wouldn't be able to distinguish the two. And that's why. And actually, if
Yeah,
and that's in my Prezi, I can link the exact section for it.
yeah. Ooh, Stone requested. Sorry about that, Stone. I didn't see you requesting.
Is he here?
Oh, wow. I
All
thought it was
right.
me. You guys all right?
Man,
Yo,
there
what's
he
up,
is.
Stone?
Yo, hey, yo, hey. Good to be here. Did we lose who you were talking to, Alan? What happened there?
No, I was just I was answering a question for Ken, or like explaining something to Ken about why the
Ah,
why
gotcha.
the mainstream academic lads say that, or some will say that Newton and Einstein are both forces, and some will say that Newton's a force and Einstein's a pseudo force. So I was explaining like where the difference comes from.
Well, we seem to have another Globy shortage here, boys. But and girls, what are we doing about that?
We were trying to taunt them with kinematics and dynamics to have them come boldly assert their dynamics, but no dynamics have thus appeared.
Yeah, they seem to be a little timid. You know, I don't get it. They want to sit there and talk all this ridiculous bullshit in the fucking timeline, but invite them to come in here and discuss this like rational people. And nope, nope, nope. Can't do that. Can't do that.
Timeline's too easy to copy and paste.
And that's it right there, man. Can't ask Grok if I'm live. Not that fast. I mean, seriously, man, they're believing in stuff where they say science can't prove anything. Why do you want to believe in that?
Well, I mean that's true, but it can through Karl Popper's false null hypothesis, truth through falsification, you could definitely get closer to the truth. I think is probably what they would say, in a more refined way. Not that you can't. Now the people that say they can't know truth for certain for reasons that aren't related to null hypothesis falsification, yeah, those guys are philosophically gone. That's where you're straight faded.
Well, the worst ones are the ones that have paid money to be
Stone, I heard you've been data crunching.
Chose the Marine Corps over college.
Oh, I lost connection. Sorry, guys. Dag nabbit.
I think the long and short of that is actually you guys, I guess by default, whether you made the choice or not, ended up being the demographic who just learned appreciable skills at an earlier age.
You gotta hold on tight. We're on a spinny space ball, man. You loosen up your grip a little bit, you go flying off.
There's nothing worse than a loose space ball.
Oh man, I'm telling you.
Must
You
be the
guys-
Coriolis effect.
You guys want to hear a funny?
Yeah.
Hello. Is my mic still working? Okay. So check this
Oh, yeah.
out. One of the ways that they say that they measured Mercury's mass before they sent a satellite to it to go orbit it, right? Because the way that these equations solve, you can only solve it if you're orbiting the body that you're trying to solve for. You can't tell your own mass from your orbit. So anyway, the way that they used to determine Mercury's mass previous was when a comet was near the sun, they said that they said that they measured a deflection from its usual trajectory, And that deflection gave them the orbital parameter that they needed to solve for the mass of Mercury. And now, granted, they were off by, 2 times the current accepted value, but that was their working. That was they saw they saw a comet in the sky, guys.
Well, they gave it the old college try. Give them points for that. They paid the rent.
Dude, that's
Yeah.
insane, bro. Like, hey, you know how much that car weighs? Oh, I don't know. How can you tell? I don't know. I have to wait for someone to skateboard by.
No, it's by how far he deflected the biker at 50 miles an hour.
Well, that would be useful information to tell you those parameters, but what they have was way different. Think about, like, dude, they're like, oh man, they got us so good, guys. Like, it's well done. Honestly, hats off to him. I see X Twit with his hand up. What's up, lad?
Hey, what's up, dudes? What are you guys talking about?
Talking about a little kinematics and dynamics, and I think that's about it.
Oh shit.
But if you want to subject change or introduce a new topic, you're welcome to propose it to the group.
No, this is good. This is good. I think I'll throw something at this here. See if we can't maybe jog some thoughts on it. I don't think we're on a globe. I don't think we're on a flat Earth. I don't think we're on a turtle's eye. I don't think we're on a giant's eye or a turtle's back. I think we're in our minds collectively, and we're playing it out in real time.
That's an interesting proposal. My question for you, because we're kind of focused on trying to get into the aspects of like what we can falsify through experiment to get closer to the truth kind of thing. Is there any way to falsify what you're putting forward cosmologically?
I don't really know.
I think he's got you there.
Dudes, you guys are way out of my league. No, look, Einstein's theory of relativity proposes
We love it.
that everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. It proposes that motion is external, but it has that fault that it doesn't consider the observer, or it does consider the observer. Which one is it? Is it does it consider the observer or does it not?
It denies the necessity for an absolute frame.
And isn't that why Niels Bohr's theory of wave formation became most popular as quantum physics took off?
I vaguely remember some relationship to that. So was Niels Bohr the guy who made the prediction for the amount of what do they call it? Lamb shift? What was it? You know what I'm talking about?
I think that was Planck.
Yeah, I think that was Planck. It was the double slit experiment where he kind of drew a correlation to consciousness creating absolutes rather than waveforms, or waveforms rather than absolutes.
They give Bohr partial credit for the atomic model.
Okay.
So so what you're saying? You're trying to say like the observer? I got you. So you're talking about how consciousness observing in an experiment will change like the path of light and whatnot.
Exactly.
Got you. All right. So let's see here. So they've got their double slit. They've got their laser, right? And they're shooting it through different gratings. Like one's closed, one's open, and they're seeing what happens. And every time they do it, they get the same diffraction pattern, and they get which is the pattern for a wave. They never get the pattern that it would make if it's a particle, and because they earlier, because of cosmological reasons, they emptied out the vacuum of space, so they conceptualized propagation of light as a photon, like as an actual particle through space, because that's the only thing that could move through an empty vacuum and carry energy. So when they make the measurement, though, they can never find that particle pattern that they hypothesized that should exist, in some way or another. So they've so there's several ways so there's several other ways that they could test for this too. And there's actually a YouTube channel that did this during the COVID lockdowns. Her YouTube channel is Through the Looking Glass. Can you mute your mic for a second? It's echoing through.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're good. So if I'll get the links and stuff for you after I go through the story here. But so anyway, during the lockdowns, she's a PhD professor of quantum mechanics, and she's decides that she's going to do the double slit experiment herself because it's the backbone of what she believes in. She's never actually done it herself, so she wanted to give it a gandy. And she kept getting the wave pattern, and she was like, "Oh well, how do we differentiate? What can I do here?" So she ended up putting a fog machine uh in her apartment, and the fog creates, you can see the wave pattern all the way through. You don't have to just wait for the diffraction pattern at the end, and it's a wave all the way through. It's always a wave, it's never not a wave. And that kind of like blew her mind, and she was real like perturbed about that. And then what people will say is that quantum computing proves this superposition effect, this duality of particle wave superposition. And the reason that they say quantum computing doesn't work is because of the ambient temperature, the ambient background temperature. So they have to cool their system down to as close to 0 Kelvin as they can get, but that's not a realistic thing. You could never achieve 0 Kelvin. That would require, infinite cooling and all that. It's a paradox. You would never get that value. But without infinite cooling, they can't maintain the superposition. So like the big struggle, right, is for them is trying to circumvent this cooling situation, because they say that ambient heat will collapse the waveform. Well, I can link you an experiment that a gentleman did where he sets up a double slit experiment, and he he has ambient heat. It's a literal hair dryer essentially. He's introducing heat over the waveform, and it doesn't collapse into the particle form. The diffraction pattern remains the same. So that's not a realistic thing either. And then Sabina Hofstadter, if you're familiar with her, she's kind of a mainstream physics lass. She put out a video exposing the fraudulence of the quantum eraser experiment, which is where they split a detector, and then they split a beam, and it goes in two different directions, and then they show you the end result, but it's split up between two detectors. And they're like, look, this resembles what the particle pattern would be, but if you combine the two detectors, it's just the wave pattern. There's never a going back and forth observer effect or whatever. That's a made up thing that they made to kind of get the public to romanticize how quantum theory works, because if they actually knew, it would, it would.
So you think it was kind of like a hoax? What Niels Bohr was kind of proposing was that observation created the waveform out of the particle.
Yeah, it's never once been observed the outcome that would be predicted by the particle form.
Because that was like my main contention with it, was that he walked away from the experiment and forgot about it, and then when he came back, it was a waveform, and he was all like, "What the?" And so he did the experiment again, but then got the double slit.
No, that's crazy, dude. If that was a real thing, that would be so profound. You would see it all the time in your life. That would be so crazy.
Well, then how do you explain spooky action from a distance?
You don't. Einstein actually debunked that with the Einstein, what was it? The Einstein-Penrose paper that he released. He showed that is not a real thing. You can solve for you can still solve for the other one without knowing, and it doesn't influence the outcome. So it's not a real thing.
So then you would have to submit that manifestation isn't real in that case. Like the law of attraction doesn't actually work.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. That's not really related. One's a concept of instantaneous action at a distance, and having a medium
Man, did we lose Alan again?
Oh, Alan, where'd you go? Oh, Alan, where'd you go?
He was rolling too. That was good.
Man, I totally believe we went to 238,000 miles away in a vacuum and talked to some dudes on the moon, man. I believe it wholeheartedly. 1969. But we need the dial up back. I think that's the thing there is we need that dial up.
But Einstein makes provision within relativity, within general, for spooky action at a distance. It's merely an effect that happens. Like this is the whole fundamental behind what a gravity wave is supposed to be, is that something changes in position cosmologically, and we feel the gradient and change in direction of the force alleged attracting to that particular object, or the way that is, according to Eddington, deflecting light around it based on how it moves, where it moves, when it moves. And, that the spooky action isn't happening instantaneously once that light from that new position reaches us. The same thing can be applied fundamentally to gravity in terms of the change of position of a cosmological body, which is really the only place where any of this is relevant.
See, and now this is what gets me about this whole conversation. And, I'm not a mathematician or a physicist. I'm just like, some dude who drives, for a living and, does his thing, plays my music. But I can attest to, manifestation in the sense that all of my productivity always leads to a specific outcome. And whether or not that's coming from me or the sources being drawn in, it's like this. Like Napoleon Hill writes this book, Think and Grow Rich. Have you ever heard of that book?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yo, real
Great
quick
book.
before you continue though, like law of attraction isn't related to quantum entanglement. Those are those are different things. You could
Flat Earth, neither.
Yeah, if you decouple those, you could you won't have to reconcile anything. You're good to go. Sorry, go ahead.
Maybe, but maybe not. Because if we can't prove that, if you can't actually prove that quantum physics exists, then, and you can't actually prove that gravity exists, then you're still at 0 point. You know what I mean? As far as the theory of relativity goes, if you're an observer.
Nobody has to prove that gravity exists. What they have to prove is the cause.
Well,
yeah, but
none of what you said is related to the law of attraction. That's a different thing than GMM over R squared, my boy.
Yeah, that's the event horizon cause and effect attraction, not mass attraction versus some other thing, electrostatics or whatever.
Right. But if there isn't...
One is physical, one is metaphysical. How about that?
That's a really good way to put it. But if it's not physical before, then it is metaphysical until it becomes physical.
I'm not going to play the chicken egg game.
It is kind of like a chicken and egg game there. But this is why, okay, so I go to Athene's theory of everything to kind of like validate that this is a reality and that the mere neuron doesn't exactly know, the difference between it or the observer or what it's being observed. And so you kind of like have a combination of the reptile theory and, the creation or the evolution of the frontal temporal lobe as you pass through the limbic brain, and how it basically, how those three elements create, causality within the mind, and that the mind is breaking down reality through the eyes of the observer, which is what I would basically concede is actually 0 point, not necessarily an amalgamation of thoughts that were created by a group of people in a lab that had science or maths or anything like that, because it's a complexity that kind of like leads to like the development of technologies or maybe understandings in, anatomy, not necessarily anatomy, biology.
Okay, I'm sure you're going to get to a salient point soon, right?
Maybe not. I don't know. I'm just checking, seeing what you guys think.
Yeah. Well, we're huge on conclusions and mutually exclusive outcomes.
Am I able to respond to that quickly?
Oh, there you are. Welcome back.
So your law of attraction idea is fundamentally flawed. It's not one or the other. It's actually both. You resonate at a certain frequency that aligns with things you're trying to attract. So it's the internal affecting the external, and the externals are influencing the internal. So it's both, not just one or the other.
You know, without sounding like I have some kind of like megalomaniac rhetoric, it's like, you know, we are in reality, obviously, but so many theories float around that kind of like try to like debug that, like the simulation theory for one, you know, and yeah, I mean, like, how do you explain that? How do you explain a group of people who actually believe that the reality we exist in is actually code?
I'd say they're not very scientific. Like
Yeah.
Alan said, if you can't falsify it, where does that actually leave you in terms of validity?
So then that would mean that their you know, their suppositions basically appeal to people who are more inclined to believe, you know, that I guess they are like the one and only. You know what I mean?
Nah, it seems like you're just kind of saying stuff.
Not really.
Not really putting down what
Yeah,
you're picking up, brother.
yeah, I get that a lot. It's a work in progress. Thanks for letting me talk, Rose.
Let me
No
ask you
worries,
a
lad.
question. How does the simulation theory prove or disprove the dream and nightmare realm, the astral realm? Because you can't dismiss it, because when you go to sleep, you do have dreams and nightmares. So, and you do go to a different place. So how do you account for it?
Well, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. Well, okay, so let's take the Matrix, for example, and like why it has kind of like an impact in whether or not simulation theory exists. So Athene's theory of everything basically states that aspects of illusory nature being fed into a vein of consciousness could actually disrupt normalities, functionable normalities, like science that we have in general or academia. But enough people believe that the Matrix is real. You know what I mean? But before they believed the Matrix is real, they kind of felt like there was some form of a Matrix that existed. So somebody comes along, you know, 20 years after the fact that the Matrix has been released, and suddenly we have code written into everything, and now scientists feel that it's appropriate to validate that the Matrix exists. You know, and so you draw that all the way back to like consciousness creating reality, and you relate that to Niels Bohr's effect of the wave function being the observation, and it validates Athene's theory in that the Matrix can exist if enough people believe in it, like a collective conscious actually working in unison with each other to invent the plausible reality.
But that's not logic, that's fantasy.
But then again, okay, so then again, though,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yo, remember how we went over the, like, if the fundamental effect that it's based on, which is the change of the, the collapse of the waveform, if that's never been observed, then how can you say that that's, how does that have any claim to like build upon further things, right? Like everything that follows that is unproven and can't be falsified then. So, it becomes, there's no reason to consider it.
well, the mirror neuron does exist. It was proven. So, but maybe I'm just somebody who wants to believe in the imaginative, or has like that creative spark in me that wants to survive. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, what's
Let me ask you a question.
No, because everybody here has a death wish, right? Because we don't care about that shit. Right.
So,
Wait. What do you mean? What do you mean?
That was a really holier than thou assertion you tacked on the end there, man.
But then again, but seriously though, think about it for just a second. If you don't hold yourself to that high, if you don't hold yourself to a high esteem like that, then you're never really going to actually, like, get what you're looking for.
You can't see that you made that a really gigantic based generalization against the entire crowd, and just drew a big line between yourself and all of us.
Maybe I did. Yeah, I guess I did. I guess I really did. So it was kind of selfish. My apologies, guys.
Just keeping you in check there, bro.
I appreciate it. That's why I clocked in.
So as far as what they're teaching us in schools about us, being a ball flying around through a vacuum, man, do you believe in all that?
No, like I said, I really do believe that we're all observing reality from a single source, and that our collection is, dependent on our ability to comprehend it.
So all the shit I've been going through in my life is because of you thinking about it?
It might be. Genuinely.
That's some fucked up shit.
Yeah, I'm learning.
Yeah, I don't believe in that. So in this reality that everybody thinks about other people all the time, and that's what's creating their Kellogg's Fruit Loops or whatever with the red dye 40 that gives you autism and shit. Whatever. What shape is it there? Are you living on a ball or a flat plane or?
Well, I mean, like, what's the main contention that the majority of people, I guess, lock into? It's a globe, because that's the most of the proof.
How do you know what everybody is thinking, though?
Well,
that's your whole thing right there. Is the whole collective has to be thinking that there's a Circle K on the corner over here, so that's why there's a Circle K over there on the corner.
Well, we all had public schooling, and the majority of us were kind of like raised up in it, and so I just assume, because I have survival instincts, that if I go against the crowd, then it's probably not the best thing.
I guess that's where I got all fucked up, because I saw the crowd going one way. I said, that's some bullshit that way.
Yeah, your mistake is paying attention to the crowd at all.
Yeah, when they're zigging, man, you're supposed to zag, man. Never go with the crowd, man.
That's a mind virus.
So then how do you explain
large
the
groups
phenomenon?
of people? It turns out large groups of people, they turn out to be retarded.
Well, then what's your guys' opinion on how the flat Earth theory gained traction?
Well,
empirically,
it's a theory that pans out to be flat. So our theories actually come true versus all that garbage you just said.
Yes, it happened on an empirical basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, based off of okay, all right. I don't think that it came about because of a necessity. Well, I think it happened. The reason why it happened was because a majority of people got really sick and fucking tired of the bullshit that was going around being spewed off of the heliocentric model. All of the metrics that were being used.
You think flat Earth is a new concept?
No, I know it's a very old concept. It's older than the heliocentric
model. It didn't
model.
just happen just because of some social political climate change in the past, say, 100 years.
No, but I think that its emergence was due to an exhaustion of the manipulation of the heliocentric model on people in their just respective environments.
Okay. So you're saying that the heliocentric model came first on the timeline?
No, it didn't come first. I know it didn't come first. The flat Earth model always was first, or at least as far as I'm concerned, And how would I actually know that? Because I wasn't alive when the flat Earth model was built, nor was I alive when Galileo did his experiments for, to prove that we weren't in the center of the universe.
Are you saying that when the government did things like COVID that made people sick about trusting the government, and now people think the Earth is flat?
Turn up your mic a bit, Shane.
Or I can sit up.
Yeah, that might work too.
Yeah, you're about. That would be
disagree with you, but that's exactly how I got here, so I can't, in this particular instance, disagree.
So. Yeah.
Not really from exhaustion though, but like from being rapidly eye-opened through a bunch of bullshit that like thought, oh, the government's good for me. I'm gonna go pay taxes, and oh wait, no, why are they demanding that I poison myself with an untested thing? That can't be right. Why are they trying to ruin the economy? Why do they pass all the wealth to the middle class? Why are they deciding who's important? Why are they closing my business? Why did they take all the wealth? Why are they printing money? Why are they inflating the government? Wait, is it all on purpose? Oh, wait a second. And then it's like,
What-
yeah, maybe it's not for me.
Without actually really taking notice to what I was saying earlier, maybe you could see now how I could see how you're in your mind, and that conflict between the frontal temporal cortex and the mammalian brain is actually, it has validity.
Well, I don't know. Honestly, I was walking my dog. I don't know what you were saying, but it sounded like from a
He's
stone
referring to
wall.
the reptilian subcomplex part of the brain.
Mm,
It's
right.
just sitting on top of the brainstem.
Do you know why alligators are ornery? Because they got all them teeth, no
Medulla
toothbrush.
oblongata, I heard.
No tooth. Do we have Run Bond? Do we have the El Presidente in the house?
We do.
He's waiting my turn. I see Dan
Mr.
and
J,
Xavier
Mr.
with
T.
hands up, but I'm
Well,
here.
you know, they can wait. It's not every day we get, you know.
That's right.
The president of Flat Earth, everyone.
Yeah, I'm not in a big rush. I'm enjoying hearing X's perspective and thoughts and stuff. I was kind of getting ready to compose a message to you about Mark Gober because he has a book that I think you'd enjoy, and Into the Upside Down Thinking. At the bottom, it says dispelling the myth that the brain produces consciousness and that and the implications for everyday life. And then his most recent one, I'd say check that one out. And then and Into the Upside Down Cosmos, because this guy seems to be speaking your language. You vibe with his first book, and then the one that he's waking up to about the cosmos. It says rethinking the Big Bang, heliocentrism, the lights in the sky, and where we live. I think these would be a couple books you'd enjoy.
And this is Mark Gober.
Yeah, markgober.com. He's even found on X. I met him at Confluence in person. Legendary.
Oh, that's cool.
Guy seeking the truth.
How do you spell that?
Gober, just M-A-R-K.
Easy enough. Hey, man, thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he graduated from Princeton, magna cum laude, got into the financial world, and he used to just be basically agnostic and woke up to a lot of truths at once. But you know, it's tough because I like the points. I like the way you're coming to the questions, or kind of where you are is okay with me. But like the other guys were pushing back empirically, scientifically, with investigation, you can rule out that we live on a spinning, twirling globe in space orbiting the sun. I mean, comes down to it that we're on a stationary topographical plane that's enclosed, but I can't tell you, well, where's the end of the earth, or where does the firmament come down. These are things that I can't get to personally, but it's a fun journey. You should look into all of it, do what you're doing now, but also consider a very special central created place that's very fixed, because that's great. That's been grounding for me.
Cool. I'll give you a 1-for-1. I like Nassim Haramein. He's quite a physicist, and he talks a lot about symbolism, and he did the breakdown of the tree of life in Kabbalah, and it's very interesting. He has a video on YouTube called The Tetragrammaton and Sacred Geometry. One to check out for sure.
Nice, man. Good back and forth with the convo. I just gave you a follow so I could send you a few links. And another guy that kind of runs, I mean, they're friends, and I talk about him all the time, Stephen A. Young. I actually spoke to him earlier today. He has a master's in physics and a PhD in nuclear theoretical physics, but he realized, like, at the height of his, how much he achieved, he didn't just do his schooling at like a mediocre level. He was top. He realized that it's all theoretical. It all resides in the mind of men. It lives there in the mind of men in a theoretical fashion. And so he walked away from Einstein's theory of relativity. He realized, oh my gosh, we do live on a stationary topographical plane. And he's putting out good content on his YouTube channel. I'll just share it with you later. But it's Stephen A. Young. But yeah, I'll just send you links. But yeah, I mean, I'd say seek the truth in all categories and all topics. And it's fine that you're clinging to more of a consciousness based, we're all in our own minds and collectively we're creating possibly the reality that we're in, which would in turn, I could see how it could make you believe like, yeah, the tyranny of the heliocentric, disgusting people that like really lean towards basically moral relativism. Because if everything is relative, you can kind of like adopt moral relativism, and then it gets real nasty. I could see how what your point was earlier, like FE really made a big rise in the last coming years. But my perspective, just to kind of tit for tat with you, is we've entered into a new age possibly, because it seems to me like many truths are rising to the top at once, and many people are almost having a veil lifted from their eyes, and they're seeing through a lot of BS and tyranny, and the inversions that were upside down and tricky tricks are now easily seen for some, and we're just plowing through them and joining together as like a truth-seeking army of friends. And we're not going to give up till we, get to the bottom of as much as we can in joy and peace and love and light, that kind of thing. So I don't think that goes against your vibe, but that's where I'm at.
Heck yeah, man. I really appreciate you coming back at me with all that, and I'll check out that Mark Gober guy and, maybe roll back in. But you guys can throw me down if you want.
Oh, you're good, man. Thanks for the chat. I didn't want to bombard.
Have a good night, sir. And JT,
I think I met both those people, JT.
What up?
A truther army of friends seeking the truth or whatever. Genius, dude. That's why you're the president.
I mean, I'm just talking about what we're all doing. We're tired of the BS. We're tired of the fake science, the stuff that's been crammed down. Even top level people believe in, inversions and tricks. But some of the hardest things is to get over the ego, and some people cannot allow themselves to grasp the fact that they did believe in something that can be falsified or doesn't hold water when you really, really, look at it. Like Alan in Stone. Oh, speaking of Stone, I actually came up to say coming soon. I've begun working on a video. I'm going to highlight Stone's move from BitChute to Rumble, kind of point out the channel, how it's operated, how it's laid out, and then highlight Eric Stubbe's proof torn apart and reformulated. I'll probably play the whole video. New pilot data confirms Earth is not convex. I'll play that one, and then end it with Stone's ILS experiment, and ILS just stands for Instrument Landing System. I've been watching these videos. I haven't watched them all the way through, and I'm blown away at Stone's attention to detail and unwavering focus on presenting the data. And not only that, graphically using imagery and song to help everybody that's not usually people wouldn't be up and up on thinking that way. He either is cracking jokes or he's pointing people to it in a way that is clearly seen. And if you need to, people will just pause, look over the whole screen, zoom in on what he's got what he has highlighted. And in the description, I'll have I'll point them to the Globebusters Live with Shane and Alan. And then that's just going to be kind of my contribution back, because he does so much work, and I want people to look at these videos, take their time, and look at his other content too. So I wanted to tell you, Stone, I hadn't forgot about you. It's just juggling, family life and all this crazy stuff. Stuff kind of gets put on the back burner sometimes.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you believe how hard this guy works just to get a vote?
Works for the
I'm already
people.
voting for you. You got my vote already, guy, a long time ago. Just holy moly.
Dude, and not to
That's
mention, we rigged the
hilarious.
voting system, so it doesn't even matter. It's crazy.
Yeah, we rigged it a long time ago, bro. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we bribed all the candidates. We did the whole thing.
We even have a fake candidate come in. Mr. ran against them last year.
Oh, wow.
we had a ringer. Yeah.
Just to make it look like a competition? Yeah, totally.
Dude, you guys
Not
are
even
hilarious.
close. Not even close.
You and your shenanigans. It's like I play along just to make you guys laugh, but this really is about deeply connecting with each other and with the truth. I mean, that's what everybody in here is for. Is for Alan earlier, just laying it down, new thoughts, new hypotheses. What's he bringing to the table? And then just watching the Globers spiral and nuh-uh and throw fallacies and then like stay as long as they can and then run and start a new room. Oh, I meant to tell you, I was in Clubhouse chilling. John was in there and I was listening. Everything was chilling, but it didn't go very well for him. So he bounced, started a whole new room. And then they were like licking their wounds and just like, what's going on? Like, why did he even leave? The conversation wasn't over. And that just seems to be a pattern now that I think more and more people are seeing. Because like, if you can't stay with your feet to the fire, answer questions, stay calm, there's a tell there.
I missed it. Which John were you talking about?
Just the Clubhouse John. He's popped over on.
Oh, hey, I got you. I got you now. Sure.
Kind of rough.
Dude, you've never just like taken your ball, went home, and started playing by yourself to spite your friends before?
It's Skigat and Gang Hit.
There we go. That's so funny. But yeah, they don't actually hang around, dude. Yeah, so Alan put forth an evolution of the argument that, you know, mass wasn't important and the equation describing the motion of the sky, saying, hey, those constants that are there, that GM, those like the gravitational constant and the mass there, they're actually only there to give units to the sky. Like without those constants that ended up dropping out, because as his spreadsheet shows, the kinematic and dynamic equations, though they look different, are entirely similar, have the exact same predictability. One is in fact the other. So those constants are just there to give units to it. So now you can say that there's an amount of force and pressure and things per square unit or inch or whatever it is. So that now it has physical meaning. So they've literally given a tangible meaning to the motion of the things in the sky now. That's what that is for. That was the true magic of what Newton tried to do. So that's the magic that Alan unraveled with the spreadsheet, which I thought was great.
Yeah, for sure.
Unraveling
Man,
the
so you're
kinematics
so
and
clear.
dynamics is my favorite.
Didn't
Your
that start
mic
as
is
spite
great,
learning?
son.
Wasn't that another spite learning? Someone was like, perihelion precession proves this. And you were like, dude, not only does it not prove it, right? But it's statistically negligible.
Dude, that's why I
Yeah.
started looking at special relativity.
So like if you're a heliocentric globe lad, you would have no obligation to even explain perihelion precession because you only get it by subtracting out rotation and creating a geocentric frame in which you would be observing Mercury precess anomalously. But if you think that you're partaking in the precession, you would never know or have to even justify it. Or it's like, you know, it's it's just a math artifact. Anyway. Might not even be real, guys.
Sure. But
You know, I also enjoyed hearing Barbara Dan earlier. Just hearing his voice, it really brought me back to like Flat Earth Fridays, old school days. And I was going through an external hard drive, and I ran across just some P1000 footage. I was super zoomed into the moon, and it's just slowly moving past. And Flat Earth Friday was, I guess I was listening to it, so it basically like recorded the live into the P1000, and it was just so nostalgic to listen and just hear Sacred chopping it up. And I'll probably post it because it was like, man, I miss those days. But I'm glad you guys are doing this. And but again, Barbara Dan, hearing your voice, it's been a while. Good to hear you tonight.
Andrew, bro.
I sent you those I sent you those sources, Barbara Dan.
Yeah, I've already sent you a DM back.
Oh, nice. I checked my phone.
Xavier was before me, bro, so I'll let him go first. Really don't matter.
Yeah, what up, man? He's been posting to the pill a bit there too.
What's up, Mr. X?
Must have caught him on a snack break.
Yeah,
Hey, what's
got
up?
that
How's it
dude
going?
napping.
Oh, you're talking to Xavier, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. One of the tenants was here, just helping her out. Oh shit. Let me come back. You can go to the next person. I'll come back to me.
So, Twitch, just a question about your simulation belief, and because you mentioned the Matrix. So, the question I've got is, what substance influenced the creation of the Matrix movies? Do you know?
I don't I'm not sure I actually follow what you're asking me here. Like,
It means
do I?
which entheobotanical is responsible for the plot?
I don't even know what entheobotanical means, my brother.
So the reason I'm asking is because this part is important for your understanding of the simulation theory that you've tied into the Matrix. So the Matrix movie was influenced by magic mushrooms and LSD. So until you have sort of mapped or understood the psychedelic realm, you barely scratch the surface with the simulation theory. So that's part of not a gripe. It's just an understanding that simulation believers don't actually acknowledge or take into account that the Matrix film was influenced by psychedelics, and actually done them yourself, until you've done them yourself, you can't necessarily go into the deeper levels of the simulation belief.
Yeah, I don't deal in hallucinogenics. I never have. So I guess that part would kind of be lost on me. But I see this guy to kind of like, maybe give you a little bit of something here about like what I'm going with. I see this guy online who did the DMT, and then he goes ahead and gets into this like isolation chamber where he peers into this laser, and he says he can see the code. And so that's interesting to me.
What if I told you I've seen it myself multiple times on high doses of LSD?
Well, I would say drugs are bad, okay? I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's one thing, the ability to see the code. Then there's the ability to decode it, and ain't nobody doing that.
And it just kind of like it hits a stopping point for me right there. It's the fact that you have to be under some type of an intoxicant in order to. But I know we all hold DMT. It's all within our brain, and it's in the pineal gland. If I'm not correct.
You know there's an incredible difference between an intoxicant and a hallucinogenic.
I guess I was raised to believe that sobriety is key, and that's like in maintaining.
That's not relevant to the question.
But that's just kind of like where I go with it. You know what I mean? It's like maintaining your current track of thinking is actually going to.
An intoxicant is something that disables you, right? And a hallucinogenic is something that enables you.
And that might be true. But it would. I guess it would have to be, respective to your collective, your environment, your group of people, the people you commune with.
No,
I don't know about that.
no.
You see, this is something where you have no
let's
field
chop
of
it up.
experience. So
Well,
if
let's
I were
chop
you,
it
I
up.
wouldn't speak on this if I were you. You have no field
I
of
will.
experience.
I'll speak on it. I'm comfortable enough.
I have no fear, bro.
Okay.
Hold my beer, kid. I got this.
I'll speak on it.
So let me ask you a quick question before you speak on it. Is a hallucinogenic just a hallucin of the brain, or is it revealing to us what we can't normally perceive?
I think that intoxicants or hallucinogenics have an ability to transform your thinking to kind of like either pull you out of your community or drive you into, a higher state of function.
Dude, that's just platitude. You don't know what you're talking about.
Well, enlighten me.
Well, I don't think we can. This is experientially done. And when you are able to relate the experience in conversation, the things that you say will be entirely different than the stuff you're saying right now.
Yeah, you seem to be, in the realm where you can't really prove anything, and we like to stay in the realm where you can prove stuff.
But in order for me to do that, I have to. What you're suggesting is I have to compromise my principles.
What principle?
Yes,
What
you
principle?
actually have to do them yourself. Yes.
No, the obstacle is more about your inability to accept our anecdotal assertion from personal experience because you can't relate to it, you can't judge it, so you can't accept it.
Well, like I said, to reiterate, I would have to engage in your guys' practices.
Reality?
Which is subjective to your.
Well, dude, you're saying that the Circle K down the road only exists because the whole collective wants there to be a Circle K there. That's your premise. And I'm saying, how does everybody in the world know that there's a Circle K that needs to be placed on the corner down the road from me? You know what I'm saying? So you got, quote unquote, maybe if you believe the numbers, 8.5 billion people on Earth thinking that there's a Circle K here? That's a convenience store, by the way.
Yeah, you guys are.
Right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
That's your premise, right? Thought collective?
Yeah, it is my premise there.
You believe in the Borg, dude. Do you watch Star Trek?
Well, I guess you could say that I do believe in the Borg, but without it, okay. So if everybody spoke the same language, then that means the Borg does exist, right? But we don't. So, I mean, does it really exist?
Because we all can learn each other's languages, and now you don't even do that with Google Translate.
And it's like, did we get technologies because we agreed upon something? Because it just seems like if we did, then we would all just kind of like fall into like this stasis.
And again, you need everybody to agree with this, right? Because how do you know the majority didn't agree with it? I mean, who's taking the polls on these? Because it just manifested that just says, hey, everybody believe that this is going down. That's your whole premise. See, that's all I'm saying is that we live in reality, where the Earth doesn't turn into a ball. It's not orbiting anything, and gas pressure needs containment. Yeah.
So then, what about the Tower of Babel? How about we go from that approach, because we're obviously talking about.
We're going a little back in history on that one, don't you think?
Yeah, but so are we with the heliocentric and the flat Earth model. So
are we? I guess because but the Tower of Babel isn't around anymore, and honestly, other than it being spoke about in the book, no one can really prove it was here either.
But then it's
not either. But I'm just saying.
And you're okay. I see what you're saying. You're kind of like leaning towards the side of like the math reality is what kind of like validates. So, I guess
I don't dismiss the books either and saying that but there's no one's so anyway. Just saying, man. But you went back a little bit further. So what I'm saying here is, so what is it that you can prove is going down? Or are you just all about the thought police on this one?
I definitely am not trying to police your guys' thought. That's for sure. But
well, collectively you
are. Not intentionally.
But
I'm just trying to get
the same, because otherwise there won't be a Circle K down the road from me here. I say that's because one guy had a dream of having a franchise of Circle K's, and he sold it out, and everybody believed in that shit, and now we got him.
Yeah, Martin Luther.
No, I don't think Martin Luther founded Circle K.
I don't know what Circle K is.
It's a convenience store. It's like a 7-Eleven, a quick stop, a stop and go. A Buc-ee's. What is that? Is that the Beaver one? Buc-ee's?
You never saw The Adventures of Bill and Ted? Oh, buddy. Go back and see that movie.
Do they have a Circle K in it?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K. That's right out of the movie.
Strange things.
I want to go to a Buc-ee's so bad.
Dude, I kind of want to go to one too. I ain't gonna lie, man. It seems pretty dope.
I heard about it on a YouTube short, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is the fanciest place I've ever seen in my life."
That's what I said too, man. I was like, people are like coming out happy and shit. Like, I was so happy to be here. I was like, fuck, what do they got in the food there, man? It's like they walk in and they spray you with fucking magical pixie dust and say, buy shit. You'll be happy.
Yo, Twitch, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got loafing jugs where I'm at. So Maverick, and never even seen a Circle K.
And my mic's messed up.
Are you
I
there?
can hear you.
Oh, there you are. I was like, who? Did somebody say something?
Yeah,
But
I'm
it
wondering
was-
if you can hear me clearly.
There you go. It sounded pretty good.
All right. I was just gonna say to Twitch, I know it kind of seems like you're getting a bunch of pushback or like kind of shut down in a way, but first I have a question. Do you have a community of people that you connect with regularly with like your same mindset on the reality we live in?
No. No.
I mean, I imagine
Nobody
there's-
believes what I believe.
I'm imagining there's some people that do, but the reason why it seems like there's such a resistance here is because you've got a collective of probably at least 15 people that have been digging for 3+ years on, what can we prove and what can't we? What's really going on? And so when you bring what you're bringing, it's just way kind of over in left field compared to what these guys have been doing. And it's not personal or anything like that.
I think you'd probably believe me if I told you that you were spot on as well.
And second thought I had was you had mentioned the heliocentric theory. Under my assumption or opinion, is it's 473 maybe years old. It's not even 500 years old that it was really thought up and pushed, through the Catholic Church, Copernicus. And if you really look at Tycho Brahe and what he observed year after year and like how many stars he accounted for and named and watched, what he was actually out in the field with the telescope doing the work, looking at the stars, and Copernicus was inside and thought this up. It was in his mind. So Copernicus might be kind of, I'm not saying he's like you, but he was able to run free and wild with his mind, and for some reason the Catholic Church thought it was awesome and wanted him to put out his thoughts. He didn't want to do it while he was living, and they kind of pushed him. But yeah, I mean, less than 500 years they tried to flip everything that we know about where we live. And so I think it's cool that we're fighting back and pushing back.
Yeah, man, I got respect for it, and I don't think you guys are hitting me with anything that I can't handle because I'm the one who picked up the mic. So I appreciate you letting me come in and kind of chop it up with you.
Definitely, man.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, we're used to a lot more abuse, but just to chime in on a little bit on what you're saying. So in the there's no total disagreement with what you said, right? For those of us who played sports growing up, there is some realness to mind over matter, right? If you think that you suck, you're gonna suck on the field. But if you pump yourself up, I don't care who's in front of me, I'm gonna run through them like a wall. You're gonna get some tackles in, right? So there is some truth to that, but there's a difference between that and saying we are co-creators to our reality, i.e. democracy of thought, right? There's always ways that we can try to scrutinize that because that's what we want to do. We want to see if we can falsify that. So even though we entertain some esoteric stuff, we entertain it in the sense to try to see if it could be taken off the table, right? What if we all co-create to negate the concept of co-creation, right? Do we all disappear? So these basic questions kind of shatter the whole illusion of that, right? What is real? That's what we're here to answer. That's what all these conversations are about. So when people say stuff like reality is an illusion, well, illusions aren't real. That's oxymoronic in and of itself, et cetera. And the reason why there's a little bit of pushback, sometimes there's people who are smug about this, right? It's not even intentional sometimes. They feel that they're above normal perception and saying, you know, well, you guys just don't have the eyes to see and ears to hear because your pineal gland is calcified, right? It's like, okay, buddy, let's just have a civil conversation and then see what we can prove. And yes, there's different avenues that we can take, but one reliable method, as we've been talking about, I won't even say the scientific method, I'll just say cause and effect testing, because you know that doesn't scare people when you get down to the bare bones of it. Cause and effect. we all believe in cause and effect, whatever esoteric angle that you believe, but there's an aspect to cause and effect, right? You've heard the term kinematics and dynamics throughout these conversations. So if you're operating about a framework that can talk about causes, and you can have future predictions, and you can map this out mathematically, verbally, etc. And there's facts that you can derive from this. You can derive that kinematics are derived from dynamics, and then that's not up to perception, right? That's not up to opinion. That's something that's locked down. And as Alan talked about earlier, if you can change the values of dynamics and get totally different outcomes, but if you could also do the same for kinematics and you have no different outcomes by changing the value, that is significant. And that's something that can be scrutinized further, and we can dive in deeper to understand what is real, because that's what the conversation is about. And the question that's been asked over and over, can you falsify one perspective versus another? If the answer is no, we're really just posturing our own opinions in a way that sounds scientific. And that's the main crux that we hear. What can we substantiate for sure? And that's a scary question when you get down to it. Are we truthers or not? Are we looking for the truth? And if your answer is no, I can't really substantiate cause and effect, but here's some cool things that you should think about on the macrocosm and the microcosm, the 3, 6, 9, the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, these are all fun words. We all know it. And probably lost some more followers, so be it. Sometimes you got to trim the fat. But the esoteric stuff is cool as long as you can test it. If you can't test it, it's just woo-woo.
Okay. All right, cool. I'm trying to follow you here. You kind of, what exactly is kinematics anyway?
I could answer, but I could rather have one of the guys that's been doing it forever. Shane, you want to take that, or Alan?
If you guys get exhausted, you don't have to respond. It's cool.
No, kinematics is
in short, it's a relation between motion. Yeah. Let's say, for instance, you're looking at the stars and you see motion, right? Is it us that's moving relative to the stars, or is the stars moving relative to us? There's a way that you can test for that. You can see for forces, where are the forces happening? Can you test for forces between that relationship? We can, but that interpretation of that using let's say light, they'll say, okay, we have some results. Depending on those results, what can we say? Oh, there's motion, there's forces, but we have a predetermined notion of that of orbital velocity, and based on the values of that, we're not getting that. Holy shit! What do? We rethink everything that we've assumed up to this point, and say, okay, maybe the Earth isn't in motion in the way that we thought. Oh, hell no. Let's just change the behavior of how light works in a way that we can't falsify, right? And the cause and effect testing that we talked before, we can't really falsify that, but we can assert it outright and have authorities on the subject. And if you disagree, we laugh at you and say, well, of course you don't know what the experts know. So getting down to that bare bones is important. Down, kitty. It's important. So there's a reason that those terms are mentioned over and over, because it's the core.
Okay. I don't think that really answered his question as to what they are, though, and why and how they differ. So on the kinematic side, this is the metric we apply to observation. This is reality, the things that we can put into 3 dimensions and say, okay, it's this by this by this, or it's this hot, or it's this goes this far, or it's this fast, or it's this thick, or it's this whatever. The measurement of something, the quantification of that's kinematics. Okay. But when something is falling and why it's falling, or when something bounces off the wall and how it bounces off the wall, or when light refracts through a solid or a more dense medium and then comes out on a particular angle and relative to that, why it does that, that's dynamics. When you're making a prediction or you're involving forces in the measurement of things, there's a bit of cause and effect in the analysis, then that's dynamics. Those are the dynamics of a situation, the formulae that are resultant of the things that you've measured and turned into constants and the like. Does that make sense on which are which?
Yeah, types of motion.
Well, no. All types of motion are things that we measure. Those are kinematics. But when something is moving and why it bounces due to its modulus of rigidity and why it's not a purely elastic collision and why it makes sound and gives off heat energy and why it'll do this and we can predict at what rates those things happen, that's dynamics. But watching it happen and then it bounces off and it's this angle and we observe that, that's kinematics.
Okay.
One
Cool,
one practical example that I like to highlight. I'll find the thread of what Ken posted. So just like Stone talked about, forces are necessary, explaining why there's motion, right? So if there's something going on in a gravimeter or an accelerometer inside that device, there's dynamics happening, right? There's a force that's causing the mass that's attached to a spring to move. There's displacement happening. So we know right off the bat that there's a force. Okay, so we're talking dynamics here. But earlier, I don't know if you were here during the conversation, they talked about how some of these formulas, when they talk about the mass, it cancels out. So all that they're left to talk about is the acceleration in of itself without the force. Wait a minute, are we testing for forces or are we not testing for forces? So what's going on inside that gravimeter? If it's just acceleration, that's not an explanation of what's happening. You need an actual force, not a pseudo force of what gravity is explained in mainstream science of what's going on. So if it's a pseudo force can't cause displacement, Houston, we have a problem. How the hell is this happening?
I like this brief description. It's short. It says kinematics focuses on motion description, while dynamics deals with causes. So kinematics, motion description, dynamics, cause.
Basically, kinematics is how something moves, and dynamics is why something moves.
Yeah, that's. I'm looking over it. I pull up my ChatGPT to check this out here too.
And then
Yeah.
one reason why it's like brought up in this conversation, like FE versus globe, is because how we see how the stars appear to move to us are exactly the same on a globe Earth if it was spinning, if it was the thing that was moving, or a stationary plane where the luminaries move over top of us in kind of like curved visual space. So like if you're standing outside right now and it's like a beautiful starry night, you can only see so many stars from your horizon to the zenith, which is your apex, over to the other horizon. You only have a limited view of so much space in the sky. So that's the same if you're on a globe, you could only see so much above you in the celestial sphere above you. But if you're on a flat plane, it's because there's a limit to our vision. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we talk about, like turbidity in the atmosphere, and there's lensing effects and atmospheric. There's just a lot of stuff that makes it to where you only can see so much of the realm without moving. So, like, if you move, and this is going to get a little bit complicated, but um, if you move from where you're at, like say 69 miles, the stars above you are going to appear to move, and the globe earthers are going to say it's because you're going around a curved Earth, and that's why the stars above you are moving. But the flat earthers say on a plane, on a flat stationary topographical plane, when you move, it's causing the azimuthal grid of vision above you, like how the stars appear to you. You're moving yourself to another position, so you have a new set of stars above you that you would see. And in the process of moving, they would move 1 degree per 69 miles. So basically, what I'm saying with all this, you didn't even have to follow it. What I'm saying is exactly mathematically provable on paper. It's the same between the flat argument and the globe argument about what we see in the heavens. Like it's provable on both. And then so it comes down to, okay, well, which is it? And that's what this room's about. Okay, what is it? And then so we rule out motion, and then we rule out curvature, and then you're pretty much left with a stationary topographical plane in reality, like without any of the daydreaming about it, if you know what I'm saying.
Do you know who Jay Tolan Media One is?
Yeah, I had dinner with him at Vegas Flattoberfest. He sat across from me. He's awesome.
That video that he showed of the video is unbelievable. Like when I saw that video, the first time I saw that video, I was all like, okay, I'm listening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he converts his cameras to the infrared spectrum, and he sees vast distances where ultimately, you're not supposed to see more than 3 miles. Like if you're on the beach, you're not really supposed to see more than 3-ish miles because that's where the curve would dip away. And that's the whole argument is, well, the boats are disappearing bottom up, but then they don't want to talk about, angular resolution, and the bottom of the boat has a different angle to your eye than the more high up part. And then also the water's not perfectly smooth. There's like choppiness, and just a tiny little ripple and wave in the ocean as you go further and further out can block more and more of a massive ship. Doesn't mean the Earth's curved. And I've got a video on my channel where I sit down with Plain Reality for like a while. You have to skip the whole first hour is just like getting to know him, interviewing him. But Plain Reality has some amazing demonstrations. He has like 6 or 7 P1000s, maybe more. But just look up YouTube / at Run Boston Bear and look for the live with Plain Reality. You'll enjoy that one. I followed you. I don't know if you followed me back. I was going to send you some stuff.
I follow one person, and his name is Russell J. Good. It's because he created the now time sentence structure, parse syntax grammar. Well, David Wynn Miller created it, but he's the predecessor of that. And I only ever follow like 1 or 2 people that I think are like absolutely massively interesting and like have incredible stories to tell. And this guy holds the Postmaster General office, and he got it through default by basically fighting the law in the courtrooms. So that's an incredibly interesting story. And yeah, so I mean, I've heard a lot about the flat Earth story, the flat, and I've kind of like developed my own idea about like why it exists now compared to like when it was relevant before on the heliocentric model. But this particular topic about the parse syntax grammar is really like marred in like a lot of conspiracy, and there's not really much esoteric to it. It's just basically facts, legal facts. So,
that's
and
cool.
I appreciate the follow.
Well, I just don't know how to send you something. Do you have like a shareable Telegram or another way to send you a link or a file,
You could totally. Oh, wait a second. I guess I'd have to follow you back in order for you to send me.
Yeah, nobody can DM unless we follow each other. But I mean, you could always email me, runbostonbear@gmail.com, and just be like, yo, it's X or Twitch or something from a email account you don't care about. And that way we could correspond a little bit because I've got some stuff to send you. And you're right about the Postmaster General. That's like one of the highest, powerful, amazing positions like a man could have. And have you looked into Cal Washington's work?
No, Cal Washington?
Yeah, CAL, last name Washington. He's done quite a bit on law and sovereignty and like the actual inalienable rights that we have. Anyway, it's just I don't mean to get off topic here in this room, but yeah, it'd be cool if you send me an email so that I can send you information.
Yeah, I think you could tag it to my timeline.
I'd probably do that.
Yeah, if you just went at Twitch 307 and then put your link there, you could definitely tag it to me there, and then I could read it on that. That's kind of like how I usually do it.
Okay, I'll do it on my page then.
Yeah, awesome discussion. What I would add to that is that there's, and speaking of causing effect testing that we talked about earlier, you might hear of a description talked about in these flat Earth discussions about pseudo forces and real forces, with an example of bullets curving trajectory, proving a rotation of Earth, or a ball back and forth, analogous to a ball being passed back and forth on a roundabout. So here's why that doesn't work, or why we challenge that. If you're passing a ball back and forth between each other on a roundabout between two people on opposite ends, it's going to look straight to you. Though if you pass it forward and continue that, it's going to curve. I don't even like calling it a force, but it's understood as a force. That curve, if pseudo force caused that curve, but you're going straight. You're passing a ball back and forth linearly, but it curves due to the forces happening underneath, right? The roundabout, the interaction that's happening with the roundabout, actual force is causing the pseudo force. So all people who talk mainstream science know that pseudo forces are a derivative of actual real forces. That is a crucial fact, right? So we can understand that might be an assertion of why a bullet curves, but there's also forces like the wind. And as much as somebody would swear by it, as a sniper would say, well, I adjust for the curvature of the Earth, you'll get another trained sniper that says, I never adjust for the curvature of the Earth, or motion or rotation. It's usually velocity of what's happening with the bullet, wind, etc. All different factors that I account for. So there you go. So there's a description of people understanding motion and come up with a different interpretation. But like we talked about before, these pseudo forces are contingent upon real forces. So what does that mean in terms of the real force that we talked about with the gravimeter? So pseudo forces like gravity are contingent upon real forces. But we talked about masses canceling out and all we have is acceleration. We don't have a force. So what is causing the actual cause and effect mechanism of things when we let them go that go towards the ground? It has to be a real force. But as we talked about, pseudo forces can't be derived that way. You need a real force to derive the pseudo force. You can't have it backwards, as some people that work at CERN want to assert. So we have factual analysis with their mainstream as the hostile witness that says, oh yeah, we can't have it this way. What are we gonna do, double speak? And that's just something to think about. I know it sounds like a technical term, but once you research and have these conversations enough, they become second nature, and you see a glaring problem with some of this stuff, to the point where they're trying to redefine the notion of gravity. Okay, maybe we should say it is a force because why? You need to qualify that. So, yeah.
No, it's a good point. You hit on doublespeak there, and yeah, and this is kind of like where I go with this, is that what I assume is happening today is that we have some form of like a pareidolia in relation to discordanism, and it's based off of the Heliopolitan obelisk, and that's a very complicated notion that I just said, but I believe that that's a reality because of the fact that we've had a subversion in our legal system, and how that came to be is like, a very touchy subject. Some people would, I'm not sure if people are really, ready to kind of like get up in there and chop it up about that. Some spaces do. Like there's this cat Sign, and he talks about this stuff a lot. He's had some fellas in there, and I've spoken in that arena a little bit on the subject, about how currencies basically got introduced into society, and real money was taken out, and how this double speak thing kind of like landed on us. So
yeah, double speak is all over. Just like, there's a difference between legalese and lawfulness and sovereignty. And we used to talk about those stuff, but we try to keep it to the nature of reality, because we kind of get lost in the weeds and that stuff. Just be careful around that stuff. especially the sovereign citizen stuff. I mean, that there's talk about oxymoron. Research the etymology of citizen and put sovereign in front of that and see if that's not an oxymoron. But be careful with that in the sense that between all those games, you could get yourself in a lot of trouble if you don't say the correct magic words in court. I've seen a lot of sovereign citizens get people in trouble, and they don't lose credibility. Well, he didn't say the correct magic words. Like, listen, if there's enough people that awaken and we have mass awakening, we could just be like, no more, right? We have ways to defend ourselves here in the US. We have firearms. We're just going to be like, no more. We're not free exploration. We're not going to go dance between the laws of the sea versus laws of the land and me trying to say the magic words of the system, because you're still playing the game. You're still playing their game. Just mass awakening is enough. And we need that with the correct amount of thinking. Before I end that notion, I'm going to just play something for you on the notion of correct type of thinking. And then I'll post something in relation to that. Hold on, give me 1 second. This is a professor that used to work. I used to follow. I think he's retired by now. But so everything I talked about, cause and effect, direct measurements, etc., can be correctly expressed via logic, right? You could see if your explanations are sound, if you made a mistake somewhere. But listen to this, and I'll finalize.
All ears, man.
Yep.
Explain once again the law of identity. The law of identity from Aristotle states A is A. A thing is itself. A is a metaphysical variable for whatever you put in there. Whatever you put in there is whatever it is you put in there. Whatever you're looking at is that thing. That's what it is. Now, some people equivocate and say that it can be said A equals A. And that is not true. That is nonsense. Because the thing is not equal to itself. A thing is itself. A thing is what it is. It's not equal to what it is. It is what it is. So you can't put an equal sign in there and get anywhere with it. A is A. That's Aristotle's law of identity. Now, from that, he then derives, that all of logic isn't derived from that, but that's a basic tenet of logic, that you can't have a contradiction. You can't have both a thing be what it is and what it isn't. So, like in Kant's philosophy, the world that we sense both is the only world and the only objective world, and a created world of our five senses, and we're permanently out of touch with the world that our five senses created it from. So it's contradictory. Both is the real world and the only one we can get to, and it's an illusion that is just a phantom between us and the real world. So they don't mind a contradiction. In Aristotle's conception of it, when you come to a contradiction, you've got an error in your thinking.
And that kind of incorporates what we've been talking about, right? Created worlds that have contradictions, and that goes to correct thinking. Well, correct thinking according to who? According to nobody. According to rules of reality. Reality cannot have contradictions, right? If you something is what it is, it can't be what it is and what it isn't. And that seems basic and foundational, but it is the core premise of what we talk about. You want to add something?
Yeah, but I think he picked the wrong analogy to paint the picture with. This thing about how A is A, but A does not equal A. What we're really running into in that analysis is a nomenclature issue. That on one side, in the first case, we're talking about description of an entity or identification of an entity, and the other side, we are establishing the value of a variable, an element, a parameter of the entity. And that's why you can't be both. You can't be one thing and a parameter measured of one thing at the same time. Of course not. But that's a nomenclature issue, not an existential one.
Well, that's the point, though. That a lot of people conflate the two. Think about all the times that people.
Well, he sure did.
Yeah. Intentionally, though, that he didn't make a mistake. That he showed that as people do that often, in making that mistake. I should have put the video link at the same time, but he did that intentionally. Should show how people make that nomenclature, especially here in scientism, right? How many different definitions of mass have we heard, right? So with that said,
All right.
I'm going to just put a quick inference that it has to be true. Maybe I'll go over. No, I'm not going to go over logical trees proofs now, but it's too long. But quick discussion about the null hypothesis itself, Theo, the theme of the discussion, right? So we know logic is useful because you can't have contradictions and you can necessarily prove what is based on such. So premise one, if Earth's surface is curved, and that's our hypothesis, star occlusion by a distant mountain peak occurs earlier than a flat plane geometric prediction due to drop over distance. That necessarily must be true based on the topography of the surface of the Earth, right? And contradictorily, the contrapositive, if Earth is a flat surface, the star occlusion from a distant star will occur much later. Now, these gentlemen here in the Aether Cosmology have had tons and tons of observations showing that the star occlusion timing is having matched the flat Earth predictions over and over and over again. There has been times that there has been some anomalies that the globe Earth have, but it happens much more often with flat Earth predictions. So speaking of null hypothesis, if our null hypothesis is the Earth is flat, we can't negate that. Cause and effect testing, we can't negate that based on observations. So that is significant. That is significant. The third premise is the one that's contested the most. That would make it unsound if one of the premises is false. But as so far, there's always been some weirdness happening in the people who challenge this stuff, to the point where they want to forget about this measurement and talk about other measurements. Well, what if we did this on a hot air balloon and in a spot where we can't repeat the observation? And like, what are we talking about here? Repeatability is necessary with these observations. So if I made a mistake and someone else can correct them by saying, oh no, you made a mistake here, here's the observation done correctly. So if we take into account critical thinking using logic, absolute measurement using measurements via observations as well as direct measurements, we can come to conclusions about our reality. And if that is too much for people, I don't understand what they're doing in these conversations. Esoteric is fun to a point that, it just becomes unfalsifiable. And too many discussions are had on things that are unfalsifiable. There's been a discussion that the EtherCos folks, might have been Alan with one of the Globers, might have been McToon, that says, yes, falsification is important, but not a null hypothesis. We don't need that. Like, wait a minute, what is your falsification of? Are you just saying words? As you hear in these discussions, people are just saying words. These words need to have meanings, right? A is A. What is A, right? What are you going to fill A in with so we can discuss? We can't have about two different reference for that variable. We can't have two different reference because we're talking past each other. We must agree of what things are, give things a name, then test with this stuff. And we can come to conclusions as we have, and it's not looking good for an assertion of a globe.
When you said that, I immediately thought about that debate Alan had with Astronomy Live when Alan said, can you reproduce that? And he said, how can I reproduce it? It's like, exactly. You got a plane. And seriously, how is this plane testing the geometry of the Earth? I mean, seriously. We're not trying to just block a star, It's ridiculous.
Well, I do appreciate your guys' time. I'm not trying to throw a red herring or whip anybody in any kind of like a weird direction with it. I actually see things, I'm trying to come up with a new idea here. And as I've heard, like the heliocentric model and its, gloriousness, and then the flat Earth model and your guys' perspective on this. But yeah, I got a lot of homework to do here, man. Kinematics. I'm going to read up on some Mark Gober, and I'm definitely going to check out Cal Washington. So thank you guys for entertaining my retarded ass. I appreciate it.
Hey, good man.
Wow.
I'm glad you stopped by.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by, man. That's what I was about to say, for sure.
Yeah, we entertain everybody, man. Shout out to everybody down there in the listener section, man. Retweet the space. Go tag a Globey, man. We're cool.
Yeah, and Brian, if you need to drop me for other people, do so. I'm working on this post. I don't have a purple pill or a way to throw something up in the nest. I'm making like this monster post for him, and I'm gonna tag you're tagged in it because I think I talked to him. I said it was nice talking with you on your space. Did it hurt you space? That made me laugh that that's your name now. You have so many. You've had to make so many accounts. What are you on right now?
This is number 8.
Oh wow.
Trying to get up to 33, man.
There
Those are
you
rookie
go.
numbers. I'm gonna need you to push that up to 33 and a half exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a bit ridiculous how sensitive people are.
Well, if we all report you, we can get you up to 88 just to piss them off a little bit more.
Someone told me that I should tell them that I'm a transgender, and if I don't get my account back, I'll kill myself, and they'll give it back to me. I was like, I can't. So, but it'll work. It'll work. Like, nah, I don't know.
What would you do if I asked you to prove it?
Exactly. I'll show you a dress, man. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? No Globies down there, huh? What's up there, RG?
Hey, what's up, Brian? Appreciate you bringing me up, man. You say it's your eighth account? Man. Yeah, what? They just they love having you up. I'm joking. I'm joking. Hey, I did have a question though for the room about testing. Let me kind of tell you what I had happen last night. I was just listening to some people do some ideas about the sun could never be shining on like a physical object in the night sky. Hence, lighting up the moon. That there would be no way. And I was trying to spitball through my mind of, just try to figure out, if our eyes were never meant to see forever, right? And that there is compression with distance, that in the night, well, his argument was in the sky would be blue, right, at night. If the sun was hitting the moon, then it would never be a black sky, right? And I agree with that, like to the point to where a sun would have to be in your pretty local sky for it to be blue, because when you go up in elevation, it disappears, right? And it becomes black nighttime. So I was just thinking, and I was like, well, you know how we'll be sitting sometimes and listening to the stream, or you're watching someone do a stream and they have the bright light up, so that it illuminates their face to where people can see them better, right? And
All right, lads and ladettes, we're going to wrap up for the evening. We'll see you guys back on Sunday. And then Tuesday, we're taking a couple weeks off of Mondays to get some Sunday stuff, some Sunday and Tuesday stuff going. So we'll be back on those days, and then we'll be back again on Friday.